Is that going to show? Yeah, maybe. No. I've got to do... There we go. All right. All right, I've got a list here. And this is mainly for you, Cookie. Alex, if you and Billy Bob decide to go in, this will apply to you too. There are several things we need to go over. This will only take a couple of minutes, but they are important things to go over, especially since it'll be your first time competing. Matchmaking channel. I saw this happen a lot during the little mini tourneys. This is basically for mods and streamers. The only time you actually post in here is when you have a time. To set up a time with a person, DM them, get the time set up, and then post it in here, and the mods and content creators and refs and stuff like that will take care of it from there. It just keeps the clutter down. It helps the mods out a little bit when there's not a wall of text to go through, people going back and forth to figure out a time. Figure out the time in DMs, then put it in matchmaking. The coin flip, which I never thought that this would actually be an issue, but it was during the mini tourneys. There are no rules for the coin flip per se, but you need to... Let's get rid of this. There's no rules for it, right? But usually the standard way that you do it is one team flips, the other team calls it. So you'll usually send a message to whoever you're going against, say heads or tails, they do it, and then you do the flip. Again, there's no actual rules for that, but that's the way I've always seen it done, and one person threw a fit because one guy both called it and flipped it. But that's the first thing that determines attack first or defense first. In the past, it's always been attacking first. You kind of get the advantage from attacking first. It's going to be different this season because of the way faction picks go, and since it goes attack, defense, attack, it's just a little bit different. And I haven't really thought through exactly if it's going to be better to attack or defend first. Usually what I would recommend is whichever one you're more confident on. A lot of times our attacks were really strong. Those were the biggest things we practiced. So we attacked first just because that's what we were most confident in. Especially when it comes to the playoffs, everything's isolated in the game. So it's whoever wins more points that game. Points don't carry over in the playoffs. If you win the first game, it lets you basically do whatever you want the second game. The other team now has to cater to your points. Because you won your attack, let's say, and let's say you get -1 on your attack, they have to beat that now. And it lets you do whatever you want on defense. Especially if you're going against teams better than you, you kind of really, really work on one side of it is what you can do. You prepare for that, and if you win that, that lets you really go strong on the other side, your second game. You can go really strong on those factions, and they have to do less points than what you did. You have to be in Discord. I think everyone knows that, but for your games, you have to be in Market's Discord. You have all these different team channels. It's where your team belongs. You have to be in those channels during your battles. All the faction picks and the ready up, there's a channel for that. Pretty much this is the replacement for the in-game chat, is the faction picks. Timeliness, which is a huge, huge deal. And that's one of the biggest worries about bringing in any extra people is you're going to have issues with people being late. You have all 4 players from the team that need to be there. You have a mod or a ref that needs to be there, and you usually have a streamer that's there. And then everyone else who is watching already knows the time of the match. Anytime you're late, it causes issues for everybody involved. It is extremely important to be on time for your matches. Now, when I say on time, now I kind of go a little bit extreme, but I always usually have the lobby up an hour before. That's usually because an hour before I take a break from the game, I step away, stuff like that, and I just put the lobby up so people can join whenever they're ready. Because again, it's not just the other players. You have to have a mod in there or a ref. I don't know exactly how they're doing the ref thing this season. We'll see. But and usually a streamer in addition to that. So with all of those things and all those people coming in, I try and be ready. On all of my games, we were waiting on the streamer. As soon as the streamer was ready, we got started. We already had faction picks. We knew who was attacking and defending. Everyone was in. Everyone had their army comps done. It was just waiting on the streamer. When you do things like that and things move the way they're supposed to, it makes it a lot easier. Everyone has these arguments of, well, I've got a life, and sometimes it gets in the way, and everyone understands that, but it's a competitive league. Being on time is important because there's so many moving parts that rely on it. Faction options. All right. So you have a couple of different things, especially when it came to the playoffs. We had stuff like this. I would create these for every single match that we had to where we blacked out everything that they had taken up until that point. What that allows you to do, this just makes it visually, at least for me, you can have your own system. But at least for me, this makes it a lot easier to determine what factions you want to bring. This can also, for them, like this is our battle, the battle that we're about to do, this was our setup. And that let us try and determine what factions they're going to take and what we can do to counter it, right?
That's why you thought there was a Sally out, because there was 3 Nomad factions.
Yeah, we looked at this, and we figured that they would probably take one of either Roxolani or Royal Scythia on defense. Our entire plan was actually catered to countering a Sally. We didn't end up having to do that, and we did try and prepare a little bit for not having to deal with a Sally, but the big thing was having to deal with a Sally. And we saw that this was one of their big ticket options that they had. We also figured Gete would probably be in there, and it never was. But it's just one of those things where you can at least try and get a determination of what they're going to do. Again, if I can find it. We had one for us that helped us determine what we could bring. And we literally would just sit there and compare these two and go back and forth and say, okay, well, what could they bring? What could we bring to try and counter that? What have you. I also always had a planner to where we always had everything planned out. Time that the game was going to be, the map, who it was against, what factions we thought they might take. We tried to plan out our attack and defense to correlate. Basically things of those nature. I actually had one for all of group stage. So for all of group stage, all of our matches, we knew what map we were going against who, what factions they might go, what factions they had already used, what factions we wanted, maybe some substitutions. Again, you can really, and I know you're going to appreciate this more than most people, Cookie, but you can really, really plan out your entire thing. And most of this, we kind of stuck to it. Some of it did change as we went. But this let us plan out our points. We knew that going up against off meta, which is Donald and Jamham, we knew that was going to be, or we figured that would be our hardest match. So you can see we're at +1 for our attack and defense. We basically just did the minimum to get points. Raven Revolution and Rambo Tom and Runic, we figured were kind of in the middle-ish, so we tried to get a couple more points out of them. We figured we could beat Big Blast, so that's when we went with our big point factions. So I know a lot of you guys have been trying to determine, oh, well, I've got to be able to use these really big point factions and all this other stuff, and you don't have to. You can plan it out according to your opponent, and you can try and maximize points depending on who your opponent is. Against Donald and Jamham, we figured if we won one of these games, that would be good, even though it only got us 1 point. When you win, you're also denying the other person points, and you're only competing within your group. So it's one of those to where even if you're not scoring that much, you're denying your opponent points, and you can stay above them. So through that process, we kind of went back and forth and determined what factions we wanted. We figured they were taking a Cav faction. They didn't, but one of our best counters to a Cav faction was our Massilia pick, right? So since we're the attackers and we pick first, we picked Massilia first because that is our biggest Cav counter. Because what they might be able to do is if we pick Galatia first, which is not as good against Cav as Massilia is, and then they pick Massilia on defense, now we have to come up with a new faction. So you always kind of have your, again, it's a little bit different this season, but you always kind of have your anchor faction that we had. This is our biggest faction that is going to help with our comp the most. We can change the Galatia, but the Massilia was pretty important. So we knew on attack we were going to pick Massilia first. I don't know which one they picked first, but let's say Syracuse. We already know we have our Galatia. We figured they were going to Cav faction here, and they don't. They just went RDI. So originally we had basically a completely different comp. I think we had, I couldn't remember if it was Citizen or Massilian Cav, but let's say Massilian. And I can't exactly remember it, but it was something along those lines-ish. The slingers were to deal with, obviously there's going to be more to this, I just can't remember what it was. But this was our anti-Cav pick for Massilia. Again, something along these lines, I can't remember exactly what it was. But we have the slingers. Slingers are fantastic against Cav sallies. They're better at countering Cav archers than archers are. We had a whole tower wall set up, and I'll show you how we had that set up. So we need a hunter to do that. Galatia basically stayed the same because our basic plan was that I was to deal with the Cav sally, while Paint's job was to move inside the settlement and counter whatever faction they had inside the settlement. So Paint's comp didn't necessarily cater to a Cav sally, but mine did. Since they didn't bring a Cav faction here, it completely changed. And what I ended up doing, I want to say, was...
I've heard the Massilian hoplites aren't great as far as hoplites go.
What's that?
I've heard Massilian hoplites aren't great as hoplites go.
They are not. Do not bring them. They're trash. Do as I say, not as I do. I love hoplites, and I basically forced Paint to deal with it. So this was the comp that I went with Massilia instead. So it's completely different. I have no Cav. I have no slingers. The setup was completely different according to the factions that they took. I don't need the Cav. They're not going to sally with Syracuse and RDI. It's just not. They're factions that aren't going to work well with sallies. If they do sally with it, they're basically handicapping themselves. So the biggest thing that I'm worried about, one, Syracuse has Balearics and Samnites, so I know I'm going to have to deal with those two. Our best counter against Balearics is the fact that they brought double slinger factions on defense. So we know our archers are basically going to have free reign as long as they're not a direct line of sight with slingers. So we have 3 Syrians, 2 Gallics that are going to be able to deal with that. The next thing that we're going to have to deal with is all the Pila that comes with RDI. And that's actually what the Peltasts are for. Peltasts are, and I can't remember who I said it to, but Peltasts are basically one of the worst Peltast unit, the baseline Peltast. What it is, it's relatively cheap. It costs $420, right? It still gets the ammo off and everything else. It has decent, okay stats. 65 armor is very respectable. But the biggest thing that I was actually looking at with these Peltasts is for them to get shot. They have a high missile block chance. And I knew that anytime they saw a Peltast, they would try and counter it in some fashion, and that exchange would usually work out in my favor. Even if the Peltast just died, just try and get off as much ammo as I can. If they leave it alone, then it has free reign to hit the Samnites, or to hit the Illyrian Noble Hoplites that they didn't end up bringing that much, but I knew I needed to counter that, which is where these Peltasts come into play. So that's just an example of how your army comp can completely change based on your opponent's factions. You need to think, what are they going to bring, and what do I have to counter? Practice. You guys don't have too much of a problem with that, it seems, but a lot of people just kind of seem to just go into the fight. They don't really care. Especially since you guys are newer, I would definitely practice. You're going to notice issues whenever you go through your practice, and you'll be able to deal with them.
Cookie, if you guys ever want to practice, just let me and Billy Bob know. We can probably practice too.
Most of our maps, I'd say half a dozen to a dozen times, Paint and I would do the attack on. We would try and get good opponents. If we couldn't, we'd do it with randoms. I mean, just whatever we had available, but as long as we're getting on the map. So the original plan to deal with the cav was actually to have a giant tower wall here and a tower wall here. I would have, and I think it was Bull that I talked to, but I would have my little thorax up here in front, kind of like that, and the Therios right behind them. So anytime the cav tried to get in, they get caught on the thorax, and the Therios would be able to shoot them. Also, I'd have slingers. This little hill is perfect for hitting cav. It's nice and up on a hill. So while I'm worried about the cav, and again, I have my own cav, that's pretty fast. So anytime he would try and disengage his cav, my cav would be able to chase after him and make him pay for all that cycle charging. And then Paint's job was to get inside. Get inside and deal with everything inside. While my job was to protect him to where he didn't have to ever worry about the cav. Since it didn't work like that, RDI in Syracuse, we had to completely change it. We're still making the same breach. We still want to push the exact same way, right? You're pushing here because you're not getting sword-sided here. You control that area. If you push here, their archers can get you sword-side. We actually don't have to worry about that because they brought 2 slinger factions. This is one of those where I would never recommend doubling up on a faction's weaknesses. With them both going slinger factions, they both have the same weakness. And that's that they can't shoot over anything. Same thing with Thorax. I see people double up on Thorax factions a lot. You're bringing the exact same thing. You want to avoid that. You want to try and get in a situation to where you have diversity between your two armies. Especially in 2v2s, mixing it up is very important. And again, I already know I told you this, Alex, but we'll kind of slow it down here for a second. So Paint is on the ballista. Paint, that's the only thing he's focused on. And as you guys can see, we're not moving anything up right now. All of this is staying completely put while he's using his artillery. The reason being is whenever we move up, everything needs to move up. And this is something I've seen you guys do a ton, is you're not moving your army up together. You absolutely 100% need to have everything going together. The only exception is the RD piece itself. Once you've broken down the wall, this RD piece is effectively, it's gotten its use. You'd love to shoot it in the settlement. You'd love to kill 1,001 of the enemy troops with it. And that is good and dandy, but you brought the artillery piece to get a wall breach. Always, always get a wall breach. If you are attacking a civilized settlement, bring torts, knock down as much as you can. If you're going up against a bard, bring artillery piece and knock down at least one breach. We actually did talk about hitting another breach either here or here, which would have been useless in this battle, but we considered it for a little while. The only reason we actually decided not to is because the artillery is so far away and it's actually really hard to hit this wall. So my job, while I'm just standing here, I actually have things I'm supposed to be doing. The number one thing is checking the gates. And I mean, it's kind of annoying, but you sit here and you check the gates and then you check again. Most people will wait a little bit before doing their sally. Because they know if it's not obvious, like in this case, in this situation, if Syracuse tried to bring Cav outside, we don't think that that's going to happen because he doesn't have the appropriate Cav for it. But if he does, what he'll do is he'll just park his Cav right here and he'll wait 20, 30 seconds. He might wait for us to start moving our army up and then sally out. Because they know you're looking at the gates, waiting for them to open to see if there's a sally. Even if they are bringing like Cav factions and you know a sally is going to happen, you can still tell where. Either both of these gates open, they might open right out the center here too. Whatever happens, but you need to have your eye out on the gates. And especially if they do sally, it is your job to watch your allies' army. If there's a sally going on right now, I have to watch Galatia. Because he can't. He's inside of his artillery. He's shooting the wall. Also, another thing that you can do to help your ally out is you can see that that's where the wall break is. So I'll put a line here and a line here. Paint will now be able to see that while he's manually firing his artillery, and that can help him center up his shot a little bit better. Again, help your ally out. We've been in situations where one of us wasn't paying attention and the guy inside the army and inside the artillery has his archers getting ran over by Cav, but the other guy isn't paying attention. And this is another thing. You can see we have the breach. We're probably discussing whether or not to do a second one right now, but we're also talking about our general attack plan since we didn't practice this one near as much as our anti-Cav. You can see we're just sitting here talking. We're not moving. We're just trying to figure out what we're going to do. As the attacker in a 2v2, you should have time to finish the match. Every now and then, someone does a really bad job of attacking and they lose on time. I think we actually did have one loss on time last season. One. Out of the 200 some odd games that were played, one of them was lost on time. You should have all the time that you need. Take an extra minute or two, formulate your plan, make sure you guys are on the same page, make sure you're doing the same thing. And you'll notice we both started moving our armies at the same time, and it's the whole thing. Everything is moving up right now. We're not leaving anything back. The only exception to this would be the artillery. I don't think paint leaves anything for the artillery here because it's just not necessary. They most likely don't have cav, and even if they do, our artillery has fulfilled its purpose. Everything's so damn far away in this settlement that artillery doesn't have that good of a impact. He'll still shoot it, he'll still try and get kills with it, but at the end of the day we go, okay, if this ballista dies right now, we're okay with that. That's better than leaving stragglers back here to try and protect it. I normally wouldn't recommend that, protect your artillery, but it's an option that you do have. It all depends on what you want to get out of it. So our general plan here, and this is, again, we noticed this in practice, is slingers right here are very, very, very annoying. Most of your army is all staged out here, and those slingers can really, really be a pester to you. So what we're going to end up doing, I actually got 10 towers as Massilia here, and I'm going to line up my towers there. What that does is that denies them being able to use this wall against us. Even, let's say, and you'll see me do it a little bit later, I've got a couple of Gallic hunters here. And even if I tried to put one here to hit him, he could just put a slinger on this end of the wall and keep my Gallic at bay. And again, they have free reign.
Is it better to put like archers and slingers on the wall garrison or behind the wall?
You say that one more time?
Is it better to put like archers and slingers garrisoned on the wall or not?
It depends on the situation. Most likely you don't want them, most of the time you're not going to want them on the wall. The time that you have them on the wall is when they're approaching to try and get cheeky shots on them. There are situations where it does apply, but there definitely is not a blanket statement that applies to that. You need, every situation is going to be different. And what you'll see a lot of people do is they'll sally out forces here. This Freeman right now is burning down the towers. This is very important. I can't remember what the stats is for tower kills last season, but it is insane. He probably could have waited a little bit so he's not taking these slinger volleys, sword side nonetheless, but he'll still get the tower. My towers are getting in place. And this is, again, little stuff to watch out for. These slingers just got a free volley on that Galatian sword. So this is a situation where having them on the wall, he's getting these little cheeky shots. He's doing little bits of damage here. Especially once you get into later gameplay, little bits like this can have big impacts on the battle. Having one less Galatian sword can be a bad thing. Something else you want to look for here, is it should happen, is the gate oil and barb settlements is in the front, and your unit positioned in the front is going to get oil poured on it. Just like this. It seems like every time I do this, I get oil poured on me. It's almost inevitable. But we have forces here. He has Galatian swords here ready to hit anything that tries to sally out on that Levy Freeman. It's not just a Levy Freeman by itself. And even though I have all these units on the tower, they're not counter to anything right now other than putting the tower wall up. They can't counter infantry. They've got to get down from the tower and then engage. Their formation's going to be all messed up. So again, everything has its place. You always want to protect everything that you're doing. Even now, I'm sure my Gallics are somewhere like here, to where I have missile support should I need it. But all we're doing right now, burning down the towers, setting up our tower walls, getting everything ready. You notice we're actually kind of staying a little bit far back to prevent getting shot at from this tower. And something that most people don't seem to know is you can burn down the gate, and that's what we're going to do with this little 77-man Levy Freeman, is we'll burn down this gate, and we'll be able to move in through the gate. A lot of people like to bring rams. You can if you want, it's up to you, but you can also burn it down. We usually just burn it. This is something I see a lot of people do. I didn't quite check the tower range, and my Massilian is getting shot at by the arrow tower. Don't just sit there and let it happen. Move your guys out of the tower range, which is right here. And we'll burn this tower too. So now that both of these towers are gone, I know I should be able to safely get my forces back. I don't want them to get hit by the tower as they're going back. So now that both the towers are gone, I should dismount most of these towers here pretty soon. And again, Paint is moving his Levy Freeman up to take care of this tower. You don't necessarily have to. In my experience, if you don't burn a tower, they'll take advantage of it. And if you do burn a tower, then they'll just make it useless. To me, it's better to burn the tower. It's free. I mean, you're not like using ammo per se to burn a tower. And any unit can go up to this, right click on the tower, and they can burn the tower. This little tower wall here, the purpose that one serves is for archers. What he can do is he can have his Syrian behind this tower wall, and if anything's trying to hit his Syrian, it's just going to hit the tower wall. But he can also dip the Syrian in front of it and shoot when he needs to, and then retreat right back behind the tower. That's one of those things you see. All these towers have a purpose. We know that we're probably going to have units staged in this area, so we're protected against slingers here, and we're protected against units on the wall here. It's just one of those things where we're getting extra protection where we can. That's where our towers serve a purpose. They're not just there because. You can see that I dismounted most of the towers and moved most of my forces back, but I'm actually keeping 2 thorax here. The purpose behind that is they always have to respect the fact that 2 thorax can land on this wall at any time. A lot of people just like to camp out missiles in little corners like this. And if they decide to do that here without protecting it, then thorax are going to be able to deal with them very quickly. This will probably never happen, but they have to respect it, because the second that they don't, that's when you take advantage. It's the same thing with sallies. The second you don't respect a sally or a cav unit, that's when it's going to take advantage of it. Now, as we're moving troops in, one of the things you got to worry about, and this is one of the things that we were the worst about, is scorpions. Scorpions are very, very devastating, and that scorpion's going to get over 200 kills sitting right there, just because this is our main push, and it's going to be able to hit our troops the entire time. Now, you'll see as I'm moving in, we already know that Paint's job is mainly his archers. He has the big boy archers. That's his job. For the time being anyways. So I'm taking care of the main push, and he'll help me out a little bit. But it's mainly my job to go through this infantry fight straight up. You'll notice I already have 2 thorax and 2 of my supporting Massilian Therio spears. So instead of 1 unit, instead of some terror, just 1 Levy Freeman that's going to go up here, I have 2 mid-tiers and 2 supporting infantry to go along with it. And we even do have low tiers with these Galatian swords. So there's a big combination of troops. And there's also an archer right here to support. There's my general right here to do abilities. You can see that it's not about just 1 unit. It's your entire army all working together anytime you're pushing. That's actually a mistake that he makes right here. Is this Illyrian hoplite is basically just by himself. He's going to start moving stuff up here, and again, this is another one of those hoplites just acting weird. And just as he tries to position this hoplite, it's going to take a ton of Pila. Again, I'm taking slinger fire while I'm doing it. So there definitely is, especially in competitive play, you'll see a cat and mouse played back and forth a lot for stuff like this. But we're basically manipulating this hoplite, and it's, especially it just being by itself here, it's not supported very well. It's going to hurt. Another thing that we're able to do, because they don't have a solid line here, is this hoplite is now isolated, right? We're going to move in units here. I'm about to land a Levy Freeman back here. This hoplite is now surrounded, all by itself. That's, again, a situation you want to try and avoid. You don't want to have isolated units, especially good ones. Illyrian hoplites are okay. It's definitely better to bring nobles. And we manipulated this. We know this Galatian sword is going to die to this thorax. But since his formation was wider than Paint's, he wrapped around here. And now all of these thorax are showing their sword side right now. And we're taking advantage of it with the Therios and with the thorax that fire at will. That's a way, I mean, this is getting melted really, really quick.
And it's straight on melee, like when missiles aren't involved, it is better to wrap around though, right?
Hang on, let me turn you up a little bit here.
In like a one-on-one melee, when missiles aren't involved, it is better to wrap around though.
Yes, because that Galatian sword was taking melee defense penalties by being flanked. So there definitely is a situation dictates to it. You can see, and this is another problem I've been seeing with a lot of you guys, this Galatian sword is not going to live for very long. It's only got 50 guys left. They have 40 morale, which means they're not going to last much past 50. So I'm already moving a thorax up, preparing to help out this Galatian sword. You've got to be ready for situations like this. I'm probably trying to get the rest of my Pila off before I move in, but honestly here I should probably just move in to help. And this thorax is actually going to get deleted because it's just going to take Pila from the thorax. It's going to take Pila from the Marines. This is one of the situations I was trying to avoid. I knew going against RDI we would have problems with Pila. The only advantage to my thorax taking it is it's better than a Legionnaire taking it because the Legionnaire is worth more. You can see again, whenever we move up, Paint is moving up his Galatians here, and I'm moving up a thorax. We're working together in this situation. I know I've told a lot of y'all you don't have to do this, but all Paint has to manage right now is his archers. So he can throw in a couple of cheap units to try and get some stuff easier on my end. But there's multiple units engaging this. We're going to try and have this flank protected. You can't face that way because they're going to get sword sight on you. But you have units. This Galatian here can deal with stuff. This Levy Freeman here can. And you see this is a perfect example of getting your value out of a Levy Freeman. Is getting Pila in the back of this Illyrian hoplite. The reason it's better for a Levy Freeman to do it than any of these other units that are out there is because I now have my back turned to all of these slingers. So if I did this with the thorax that I had, they would have immediately started shooting the thorax. It's not worth it to shoot the Levy, so they're not going to. And if they do shoot it, then they're not getting value out of it. It might work with these slave javelin men just because they're so cheap. But most of the time, you're just not going to get value. You can see, again, I'd just like to reiterate, I'm moving up 3 units right now. And there's already a unit engaged, and there's a levy freeman here too. It's never just one unit. And then I'm still trying to funnel more troops, take up more space, keep the troops coming in. This is a little bit clustered. I really hate having big blobs like this, and that Scorpion is going to do work because of all these blobs. But it's very important to keep reinforcements ready. And you can see here, this is a good situation of what I was talking about earlier. Especially with this tower wall here, we don't have to worry about slingers engaging this way. And I'm actually moving this Gallic to try and take out some of these slingers. And what he's going to try and do is he's going to move a slinger on the wall, which would make it really hard to kill him. And all I'll do is retreat the Gallic. I'm a little bit delayed in doing it. Well, not too bad. But again, it's just one of those cat and mouse. He's trying to counter my archer, countering his slinger, and I can just move away. I have the advantage there. Your micro has to be on point to make sure that you're doing your stuff. And this is a perfect example. This Peltast right here, the purpose that I serve, again, was to take ammo. Right now, it's a Slave Javelinman, an Illyrian Marine, and another Illyrian Marine are all dumping this Peltast. This Peltast is not going to get its value in kills, right? It's going to get deleted very, very quickly. I'll try and get as many Javelins off in the time as I can, but with the high missile block chance, and that's 1,100 between these two, so that's 1,320, I think it is. I think it's 1,320 gold that's being spent on a 420 cost unit. And it's one of those to where it's all about weighing different stuff. This Peltast, if it's ignored, it can do a lot of damage.
It's also spread out, so a lot of their missiles are missing.
It's still going to delete it. Even with 65 armor and their high missile block chance, it hurts. And this is a good example of using square, right? This Massilian Therios is not going to be that great in combat. It has a 30 charge bonus, which is respectable, but I'm sure you guys have noticed any unit in square seems to last for days. So instead of trying to fight these units, especially this Illyrian Noble Hoplite that's going to do very, very well here, very good unit. Instead of trying to fight it with units that I know are going to lose against it, I just put it in square to try and get the angles that I can from it. This Massilian Therios is already out of ammo, so most of its use has been gone. So again, it's still playing that supporting role to where it just sits there to try and get Pila angles with everything.
And you're running those slingers too.
Yeah, and I mean, that's funny because these are actually very easy to get their value in there. They didn't. I just wasted a volley there. Sometimes it's nice just to get rid of shit. Again, mounting towers. I didn't like this. This was Paint's call. And you can see this Thorax is going to get destroyed. He's also going to get a Galatian over here. But we're about to land these towers here. Because right now, this grind fight is just not in our favor. There's very little we can do to deal with this Illyrian Noble. That's another benefit to the Peltast. That Peltast getting dumped prevents this Thorax or this Galatian from getting dumped. This one is right now, and it hurts. That's the reason people love these Pila factions. It's because you can really, really hurt units. Now I'm getting into Balearics with 20 kills, and I think I mismicro this a little bit, but I do move that back. I think they get a volley or two off on me. But one of the advantages is I kind of predicted this. So I have another archer already here, and now it's shooting the one that went on the wall. And as soon as he tries to retreat, I can move this Gallic back and shoot him again. Again, it's that cat and mouse, kind of playing a chess game and being prepared for stuff. You want to be proactive, not reactive. And what Paint is going to end up doing here is he's going to hit here and here. I didn't like it too much, but it ended up working out pretty well for him. The scariest thing is slingers on top of here. They can really do work up here. I think if I remember talking to Kefford after the fight, he could not get these to shoot. They just wouldn't do it. But even still, you can see he's moving a ton of troops at the same time. It's not just one to deal with this, one to deal with this. He's moving a lot all at the same time. I probably would have been better a little bit more outstretched with that thorax. And if I remember the way this engagement went, we just constantly traded. So you see, I charged into that Illyrian Marine, and I probably missed the other one charging into me, which is not good. It means I've got the wrong attack order. And you can see the way that they're doing. They still have their Pila out. They don't even have an attack order right now. So what I should do, hopefully pretty soon, is to trade this thorax out. I don't even try and fix it with an attack order. I've got troops to help it out, and it should get traded. Again, we move down on these towers because they've got a really strong defensive line here that's going to hold for a very long time. So we have to manipulate it. He basically just used this Galatian sword to give that Illyrian Noble Hoplite an attacked in the rear penalty.
Yeah. That
drops its melee defense. Again, we're trying to deal with that. You'll see these Illyrian Noble Hoplites, they are really, really good. And even with all the stuff we do, it's still going to do decent. I mean, it's already got a chevron. It needs 2 to get its value, but 200 kills in a chevron is very respectable. Again, I need to be moving more stuff up here. This is getting a little bit weak. And this is another thing, is you can review your own replays, and you'll see that you catch yourself doing stupid things a lot. That's one of the reasons that I like doing replay reviews instead of playing with people or spectating matches and telling them what they're doing wrong as they're doing it wrong. Whenever you sit here and you can just look at a replay and that's the only thing you have to focus on, you'll notice things that even you did wrong. Now right here, obviously the Illyrian Noble Hoplite is still a threat. With it at half strength, it's lost a lot of its HP pool and it's not near as much of a threat as it was. So the biggest threat here is either these Balearics, which are probably getting kind of close to out. They've dumped most of their ammo. I think there's a fresh one up there, but it got killed a little bit. The most important thing to think about right now is a Samnite. Samnites are very, very good, and a Samnite can basically beat anything that I have. My Massilian Hoplite might do okay against it, depending on a lot of other factors, but that's probably the only unit I have to deal with Samnites, and he's got 3 of them. So in order to deal with Samnites, what I'm going to try and do is get Pila off. And you'll see it that I just dump Samnites. This one, and he's going to correct for it really quick, but this one's going to try and get Swordside on him right now. So even though this Thorax is dead, and it didn't get anywhere close to near the value it needed to, which is one of the reasons I didn't like landing here, but What it is going to allow me to do is start trying to get sword side on this Sam Knight right here.
Can the Galatian Legionaries beat Sam Knights?
I do not know. It'd probably be kind of close. I think Galatian Legionaries probably can, but Paint is very, very occupied right now. He's got a lot of stuff going on over here. This right here is my responsibility. It is possible to ask for, hey, can you send a Legionnaire over here? But they're going to basically trade, which is not really what you want. You want to beat them, not just trade with them. So again, that's why these Therios, they should have like 9 armor pin. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's either 9 or 12. So I'm just trying to just dump this Sam Knight. Just get rid of it. Again, it's the highest threat. A lot of people are going to see this gen, which does have value here, right? The biggest value it has is it's going to be encouraging nearby units. They will fight longer just with that gen being here. And of course it provides the abilities. But it would be a lot easier for me to deal with a Thorax Hoplite gen than this Sam Knight. A lot of people see that square banner and they just freak out. Just think, if this was just a Thorax Hoplite, would you rather go off against a Thorax Hoplite or a Mercenary Sam Knight? That's why I'm trying to focus this Sam Knight down. Try and get as little make him get as little value as I can against that Sam Knight. Again, this is a little blobbed up, and I'll do this a lot. This isn't terrible, but I'm basically taking all of my weak units to fight off this one. I should at some point in time replace it, save these units as much as I can. I'm still trying to hit that Noble Hoplite too. Even though it's down to so little men, this unit has Encourage, which just like the gen, all of these units are going to stick around in combat longer just with that unit being present.
Does Encourage and the gen, do they stack?
Yes. If I'm not mistaken, I don't know 100%, but I'm almost positive that the gen's Encourage ability is different than the base Encourage ability that units will have. Most general units already have it. The Thorax Hoplite doesn't. But basically right now they're getting the benefit of both. Again, don't quote me on it because I'm not 100% positive, but almost sure that you do get both. And the only reason is because they're considered different abilities, if you will. Like a Hex Bearer from Swaby, their passive ability doesn't help, and I'm probably screaming at him to get this Galatian sword out of my Peltast right now. But again, he's shooting 550 Marines into 420 Peltast. That engagement will end up benefiting me. What I might have here is just this Peltast on fire at will and just letting them pick their own targets. Just to try and get these a little bit weaker. You can see this Hoplite down to 34 men. It's about to get its second Chevron. And he's not even using it well. Larian Hoplites are very good, very tanky units. You can see this Sam Knight, even getting dumped, is still earning a Chevron. Sam Knights are very, very good, especially against my faction. Especially against something like Massilia. It's going to do a lot. Now, a lot of that value is coming from out-of-ammo Peltast, out-of-ammo Therio Spears, but still. And you can see I'm doing the exact same thing with the next Sam Knight. Just trying to absolutely dump it. Get rid of as much as I can. Again, it's the highest threat right now. is these Samnites. So this is what I'm going to do, is try and save these units and move this out of ammo Therios in. So even though these units are mostly dead, I'm trying to get them out to save them. Every little bit of units that you can save, do it. But they're in a losing engagement there. And again, I'm going to do the exact same thing as put it into square to try and get Pila off where I can. This Pila is a little bit wasted on this Illyrian Therios, but I'm probably getting a little bit impatient because this fight is just taking forever. And I'm having to manipulate a lot just to try and make any progress. So it's not quite the best thing, but I guess I'm just trying to get Pila off. And again, a lot of these little tattered units, try and get them engaged back in. They should do decent against these units, but I'm just moving multiple in and blobbing up a little bit just because all the units are dead. This is the part where Paint asked me to help over here, so I'm going to start bringing units out over there to try and help him out. Again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm trying to bring a fresh thorax in here to try and deal with this, other than instead of all these little tiny units. And this is one of those to where I'm going to struggle, is Paint is now asking for help, so I've got to try and bolster up numbers here. You can see a little bit of manipulating gaps here. Instead of just fighting one spot, now that there's a gap, he'll start moving guys out. And you'll see he'll kind of start trying to fan out stuff a little bit. If this thorax turns to try and face these, he'll have units to come up behind the thorax now. And you can work on stuff like that to try and manipulate stuff. This thorax is basically by itself. It's actually probably going to do decent just because of the units it's facing. But with what he has left, he's trying to maximize the value he's going to get out of everything.
Yeah, like so far in this battle, like I think there's 3 big takeaways so far that I've gotten. Pre-battle planning, move in, like and support your units with a lot of stuff. and then try to manipulate like each fight to your advantage.
That's a big thing that I see a lot of new people do. Is that last little point is people just let stuff loose. You can see this thorax. He's winning right now. He's winning decisively, and that's a good engagement. But whenever I had units here and a lot of them were losing, I tried to switch out units, get a healthier unit in there. Always try and get your units in winning engagements.
Yeah, and I'm pretty good about that usually anymore, but positional manipulation I'm not so good at.
So this Peltas, this is a good situation. This Galatian nobleman is starting to hurt. So what I'm doing here is I moved my Peltas in, even though it's not quite good against the thorax. It's going to give his Galatian nobleman a break from it.
Why did you bring the Galatian nobleman, Jen?
Most people, actually, Hyena specifically, laughed at Paint for doing this, but Galatian noblemen did alright. Paint and I have a thing for spears, and we usually have at least one spear unit somewhere on our army comps. Not because it's the best decision, but we like it. The Swaby spear spam is my favorite army, to where I bring 7 Wodenaz spears. It's not because it necessarily is the best option. It's just one of the things that we like to do. So in this situation, I'm a little bit delayed with my reinforcements. He was asking for these a lot earlier. And while his gen is holding the Illyrian gen here, he's dying a lot. So my delay in not having reinforcements ready is causing me to lose this Peltas and is going to cause him to lose his gen. This is one of those to where you need to be very, very proactive and ready to replace things. Paint moves a little bit faster than I do, so I'm usually lagging behind a little bit. But still, I should be helping him out there. This is kind of a blob, and I think I fixed this here in a minute. But that's not the ideal situation. Yeah, I'm about to pull these out. And I know I've told some of you this before. Hoplite v Hoplite is fucking terrible, but I'm about to do it. The biggest reason why is I'm having to manage troops here. And for me, that's a lot to deal with all at once. My gen is going to be super, super stable. These will basically just sit here and trade, which actually works in his favor because he's got the cheaper hoplite. But this fight will last the rest of the battle.
Yeah.
So while we're trying to clean up this Samnite, while we're trying to clean up these little stragglers and take care of this little fight, this can just stay here, and they can just sit there and stare at each other and kill one guy a minute.
So it looks like you could get around the hoplite.
Yeah, and I will. You'll see I'm already starting to move it to get around. But again, my thought process here, at least at the beginning, was I won't have to worry about this. What the fuck is way out there? He put his ballista in the back.
Right.
You can see it's I mean, for the most part, it's just clean up. We're just getting every last little straggler here. I actually took out that noble hoplite. There was one noble hoplite left, but I went ahead and took it out because even that one noble hoplite is giving that encourageability to this thorax gen. He made a very bad mistake here, and actually they do this several times at the end here, to where they start doing stuff like this. Well, now that thorax gen is attacked in the rear, to where they just would have been sitting here fighting while I just tried to clean up all this little stuff. I might have tried to attack it in the rear, but he basically just made himself get surrounded.
Yeah.
Of course, my hoplite's pulling through because it's a hoplite.
Yep.
But yeah, now it's just cleanup. I think there's one last little moment here. This it obviously it's about to waver for army losses, but these two thorax are going to have a lot of trouble dealing with this noble hoplite. Especially, it's still got 106 men. So I'm basically trying to surround it, just to give as much of a benefit to my guys as possible. I think he makes a very, very bad decision here. He's going to turn his gen to countercharge my thorax. And it is going to hurt that thorax, but expert charge defense does work. In this situation, he's engaged with the thorax in front of him. Whenever I charge my thorax in, which only has 18 charge bonus, it's not much. That expert charge defense is still at work. He's going to have an attack in the rear. Him turning his back means he's going to win stuff. And this is kind of cheeky, but I just sit here and I play with this gen back and forth. So now he's running it away as my thorax, which should be faster, but it's tired. Is trying to chase it down, and he has 0 melee defense in the back there.
You lost like 8 guys running away.
Yeah. But now he makes a decision to get that one, so now he's, again, just going to get attacked in the rear. A lot of these situations, it's best just to keep the infantry fight going instead of trying to play around like this. Okay, so we'll do a evaluation of everyone's army. So Kefford here, you can see the best thing he has is Balearics and Samnites. All of his Balearics did well. That light Peltas did really well, but these Samnites, this is the only one that really got its value. Both of those didn't. I think most of his thorax faced off against Galatian legionnaires, so he has 3 chevrons from all of his mid tiers. From the thorax hoplite gen, these 3 Samnites, and all of his thorax, that's 3 chevrons. If you're getting your max value, or you're getting good value, I guess I should say, all of these should have a chevron. You'll notice how that can contrast to Paint's army here. His mid tiers, all of them but 1 got a chevron. These 2 were pre-chevron, so none of his Galatian swords got one, but that's fine. They don't need one. His archers didn't either, which is not good. That Galatian nobleman that everyone said was dumb to bring got 2 chevrons. That's one of those to where we traded values here. There's almost no reason to bring a regular Peltas to Syracuse. I imagine he just did that based on money. The RDI comp is definitely something I don't agree with at all. These Illyrian noble hoplites are the part of RDI. They're the main fighting force. Basically, all he has in terms of frontline infantry is his general, this regular Illyrian hoplite, and these 3 Illyrian nobles. Everything else is support. You'll see that Kefford kind of brought a small army. He has quite a few mid-tiers, but that's about it. There's very little actual fighting capabilities here. Scorpion definitely got its value. These javelin men, these slingers, they're so cheap and they're so easy to get value. Most of these probably got their money's worth. Illyrian hoplite needs a chevron to be worth it. It didn't get it. These Marines all need a chevron. So that's one of the reasons I see people bring Marines all the time. And this is the biggest reason I disagree with it. All these Marines and these Illyrian Therio spears, right? These 2 units, they have the exact same capabilities. The Marines are slightly better in melee combat, but that's not why you bring them. You bring them for their javelins. These Marines need a chevron to be worth it. These Illyrian Therios do not. It's just one of those to where just based on the cost of the unit, they're basically bringing the same thing. And he only got his value out of one of them. To where most of these Illyrian Therios probably got their value except for this one. So for Paint, we kind of already went over his army. And then for me, I mean, even my Massilian Hoplite Gen still did okay. My mid-tiers did okay. I had 4 with a chevron and 3 without. That's not ideal. You want at least one more with a chevron. This one was, I'm assuming, close. But a couple of those got dumped. The big thing is the exchange. I still had more. And then the Massilian Therio Spears, all of them but one got a chevron, which is good. They need one to pay for themselves. Or nope, these two didn't either. So about half of all of my mid-tiers got the chevron that they needed. I believe this archer still might have had a little bit of ammo. But it should have a chevron there. Again, Peltas got dumped, and that was kind of the reason I brought them. If they didn't get dumped, they would have got their value. But to me, them taking all of these Marines Pila was where their value was. That's one of those where you'll see different people have different opinions on whether or not that was worth it. But in my opinion, if these are getting dumped instead of my Thorax, Jesus, that was from forever ago. So yeah, it is definitely situational, Cookie. So basically, Cookie wants me to elaborate on what trading out value is. It's definitely something that I wouldn't worry about to a great extent for you guys just yet. But it is something to keep in the back of your mind. If a slave javelin man that costs 220 to bring is about to get sword side on an elite, and you have the ability to dump it before it can get off its javelins, then it's probably worth it. It's not going to show on the scoreboard and the chevrons and everything, and again, that's why kills aren't a perfect number, chevrons aren't a perfect number. It's really a bigger picture kind of situation. And that's one of those where you're only going to know from knowing exactly what your troops did the entire time. But exchanging value is a big part of the game, especially once you get into competitive games. You're going to lose stuff. You're going to have stuff that does really bad because it got... maybe you made one little mistake, or maybe they just got hyper-focused on deleting a unit. And there's not much you can do about it. So it all comes down to how much value are you exchanging for what. Again, I wouldn't get too thought up in the process, but again, this 550 cost Illyrian Marines is not going to get its value shooting at a 450 cost Peltas. If the Peltas was going to get sword sight on stuff, maybe. And again, it's going to get to one of those opinion-based things. One thing that I saw during one of my practices is Hyena brought several, but he had one of these 1,160 cost camo cataphracts, and that's what he took the breach with. He moved that camo cataphract in, and we put every last javelin we had into that camo cataphract, and it died, and it didn't get many kills. It might have gotten a chevron because they get their kills so damn fast. But maybe did, maybe not. So he spent 1,160, and to what it would look like to most people is he just charged that in, and it just got javelined and it just died. It didn't get its kills. It didn't get its chevrons. And I talked to him afterwards. I said, why'd you do that? He goes, because you guys spent most of your javelins on one camel cataphract. So the amount of value that he got out of taking all those javelins from that camel cataphract made it worth it. Because he didn't want them in his Parthian swords. They're low health units. He didn't want them used against those. His Parthian swords are going to do better because there's a lot less javelins to worry about. Again, some people will say that's not worth it. Some people will say it is. It's one of those where you have to try and basically do the math in your head and try and figure out how much value in javelins are you absorbing with a unit. The more you play and everything, the more you'll get used to it. But you'll see it a lot with support players throughout the league. Their scoreboards don't look great, but they're absolutely crucial to winning battles. Because they're able to do those value exchanges in their head really well, and they know what they can afford to lose, what's the best targets to shoot at, all that kind of stuff. And they can kind of keep mental track of how the battle is going with how money is getting exchanged. And that's it. That's all I got. Questions, comments, concerns. Did that address your question, Cookie? All right. Anything else you guys got for me?
No, that was pretty good. Nice to see how to attack someone like that.
All right. Well, I'm going to let my voice take a break, and we'll see y'all around next time.
All right, thanks.
Mm-hmm.